Hi there, I'm Jenna.
And I'm Steve.
Welcome back to another Field Trip Friday. Where are we today, Steve?
Today, we're going to the farmyard at the museum. So,
let's get to it.
Let's get to it.
Hi, Dr. Cannedy.
Hey.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning to you. How are you?
Better than the average person.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you do here at the museum?
Yes, I'm the veterinarian for the farm animals out here in the farmyard, so it is my responsibility to help make sure that they have all the health and medical care that they need to have healthy, happy lives.
Do you take care of all of the animals in the farmyard, or?
Well, yes and no. When I'm here, I will look in at all the animals here in the farmyard to make sure that they're all staying fairly healthy, but they have their own pig specialist that takes care of the pigs, and there's an equine specialist that takes care of Lightning and his primary health care needs.
Cool. So I think we're going to take a look around too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's do it.
All right.
We are here with you, Dr. Cannedy. We are meeting a goat. Which goat is this again?
This is Charles.
Hi, Charles. Hi, Charlie.
Hey, Charlie.
How's it going? Wants breakfast so bad, so we won't keep you too long from breakfast, Charlie. So, Dr. Cannedy, can you tell us a little bit about this animal? Like, what kind of animal is it, and how you take care of him?
Yes, this is Charles. He's a Nigerian dwarf. He's a African breed of goats, which, you know, from their home country, they are considered a dual-purpose animal, meaning that we use them for both meat and milk purposes. Now, of course, here at the museum, we use them for pets.
Yes.
So, just lots of loving and petting.
Yes.
But Charles is a goat, and he's of the caprine family, and they are considered true ruminants, meaning that they have 4 different parts to their stomachs. They have a rumen, a reticulum, an omasum, and an abomasum. Those are the 4 true parts to their stomachs, so that when they eat stuff, they digest it, and they take it through all 4 parts of those stomachs in order to turn it into energy that they use for survival. So they're a little bit different than some other species of animals in that way. Once they've gone out, they've chewed on food all day out in the pasture, eating the grass, all the grass that they want, then they come back and they lay down and they take their time and they do what we call chew their cud.
Yeah.
So they regurgitate that food, they pull it back up from that first part of their stomach. What's the first part of the stomach called?
The rumen.
Yeah, the rumen. They pull it back up from the rumen, they chew on it some more, they break it down, they make it a little more finer so that the other parts of the stomach can digest it a whole lot easier.
Nice.
I think that's so interesting that digestion in us is basically one way, but then in ruminants, like Charles here, it can go one way and then back up and then one way again.
Right, that they can kind of go back and forth and keep that material in their digestive system and in specific parts of their digestive system, back and forth, like you said, in different ways. Well, thank you, Dr. Cannedy, and thank you, Charlie. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Charlie.
All right, Chuck. Hey, buddy.
here we are. We've got an alpaca, and so this is Retro. Hi, Retro.
Say hi to everybody, Retro. He's wiggling that ear, saying hello.
Yeah. So we just met some goats, but how is your care for the alpacas different than your care for the goats?
Yeah, alpacas are completely different animals than goats, and that's the first thing you need to understand. Goats are what we consider ruminants. They're true ruminants in that they have 4 different parts to their stomachs. Alpacas are considered pseudo-ruminants. They only have 3 different parts to their stomachs. We have C1, C2, and C3. So those differences make them metabolize and utilize the stuff that they eat for food a little bit differently. In some ways, they're more efficient.
Fascinating.
Do they eat different things than goats?
No, not really. They both like grass, but alpacas and goats are what we consider both browsers. They like to eat things up high versus sheep. They like to eat things down low. Like cows and sheep, they'll eat right off the ground. They're grazers.
I see.
So that's the difference between the way that they like to eat. But they eat the same stuff in general.
Interesting.
Awesome.
Something that I know just from working here at the museum and being familiar with the barnyard is that I noticed that the alpacas are kind of a little bit more skittish or sometimes a little bit more afraid of certain things. So does that impact your work with them when you are examining them?
It does. Alpacas are obviously a lot larger than the goats. So with them being a little bit skittish, as you said, or a little bit afraid of certain types of things and the way that people approach them, that can make them a little more dangerous. They're not going to intentionally try to hurt me or anyone else, but in the efforts that they're making and trying to get away to protect themselves, they may cause a little bit of harm. So from that standpoint, just by them being a little bit more large than the goats, you need to be a little more cautious and more careful. So that's why I put the halter on, and they're used to having halters on, and you can see that Retro version here is perfectly happy and content standing here with me restraining her, just holding this halter.
Yeah.
Now if another person attempts to approach, she may get a little bit disturbed, and let us know by doing what she's done just right there. They hum when they get a little bit excited or disturbed sometimes to let you know that they're a little bit upset. So holding them, and as a matter of fact, hugging Retro like this is one of the best ways to physically restrain one. That way you have that head, you're holding it close to your body, she's not swinging it around where it's going to hurt her or hurt anyone else. But restraint is the absolute most important thing that we have to do to appropriately work on any animal that we're working with in veterinary medicine. So once we have her nice and comfortably restrained where she's not humming and upset right now, she likes being hugged. It's a nice hug there, Retro. So give her a nice little hug. Then I can do things like do a physical exam. I have my stethoscope over there. I can check her body out to make sure she doesn't have any areas of injury. I can look at her feet. I can pick her feet up and look at them to see if she needs to have her toenails trimmed or anything of that nature. We can check her body to make sure she has no, like I said, ectoparasites, lice or mange or anything, or ticks like that on her body. And do all of the things that I do in a typical veterinary exam, by looking into their eyes and make sure their eyes are looking like they're normal and healthy, or maybe even checking their teeth. So again, all of these are things that are routinely done during our annual health exams.
Thanks, Dr. Cannedy, and thank you, Retro. And
thank you,
Sherry.
Thanks, Sherry.
So, Dr. Cannedy, I am super excited to be here in this space with you because we are meeting one of my favorite animals, Dusty. So what type of animal is Dusty?
Dusty is a bull. Okay, he's a miniature Hereford bull at that, so he's very happy to be here because under normal circumstances, Dusty would be one of those animals that we'd be using potentially for a steak, a hamburger, or one of those human consumption products that folks that eat meat would use.
I'm so happy that he is here.
Yeah,
I'm happy
glad you're
too.
with us.
Yeah. Good question, Steve.
So I guess we've talked a little bit about the ruminant goats. We've talked a little bit about the pseudo-ruminant alpacas, and so I think you mentioned earlier that cattle are grazers, and so and are they true? They're true ruminants, right?
They are true ruminants. They have 4 complete different separate sections to their digestive system, so awesome. That makes them true ruminants.
Cool. Are there other differences between the way that kind of cattle physiology works versus like
alpaca or a goat?
Yeah, well, specifically I'm kind of thinking of the goats. Like, since they're both true ruminants, what are some of the differences between those two within that category?
Yeah, one of the big differences that you may or may not have noticed is that as you came into the farmyard, you saw these little piles of poo. We call those patties, cow patties, and they have much looser stool that their digestive system produces based on the way that it's designed compared to the setup that goats have. Goats produce little tiny pellets, the same way that alpacas do when they produce their feces or their waste.
Yeah.
So based on their physiology, based on their size, the anatomy of their digestive systems, their GI content that they produce through feces is quite a bit different.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cannedy, and thank you too, Aaron, and thank you, Dusty.
Thank you, Dusty.
Thank you again so much, Dr. Cannedy, for hanging out with us today. And I have a question that we've been asking all of our friends around the Triangle is, what is a moment of curiosity that you've had in your life?
If I think about it, I'd say one key moment of curiosity that I've had in my life was one that happened when I was growing up and working on a dairy farm that I grew up on in Fredericksburg, Virginia. That every time an animal would get sick, the cattle in particular, the veterinarian would come, he'd take care of the animals, they'd get better, and he'd go away. Well, we had one that didn't get better, and he left a bunch of medication for me to be the person to continue treating this animal with. And I did so, the way that he had instructed. But unfortunately, that animal died. So that point of curiosity that really stands out to me now, and it did at that time, was, why is it that that animal didn't survive after the veterinarian came and did all of those wonderful things that needed to be done to help it the way that the others did? And it wasn't until I actually got into veterinary school and we were having a physiology lecture one day, and the physiology instructor had explained that this one particular type of medication, which was the same one that I was using to treat this animal with that was sick, if given too rapidly, it can stop the heart instantly. Well, this medication that I was given, I gave it rapidly, and it stopped the heart of that animal, and it died. So I learned and understood from that point on the importance of not just how different drugs and medications can have effects on animals, but how you give them. That route of administration, whether you're giving medicine in the vein, whether you're giving medicine in the muscle or under the skin, it's very important to make sure that you follow the rules that are licensed by the pharmacists or the pharmacologist to give those medications appropriately. Otherwise, you can do harm.
That leads me to our kind of next question, which is we like to talk about how we embrace failure, how we use those moments when things don't go the way they do to change our lives or to grow and become something more, to learn. Can you share a moment? I mean, that was a good one in itself, but do you have another moment that comes to mind when you think about embracing failure, something that didn't happen as expected for you?
Sure, yeah. I mean, the case that I just mentioned is the perfect example in many ways, in that obviously I was taught and told, all right, this is how you give this medicine, do this, and the animal should get better. But when it doesn't happen, that sends a thought process into motion that, okay, was it the medicine? Was it your technique or the way that I as an individual had administered it? And we as humans, we need to learn that even sometimes when we do things completely correct the way that we believe that they should be done, even the best made efforts are sometimes going to lead in negative results.
Mm-hmm.
On that note, just the example that comes to mind for me as far as embracing failure would fit within this theme of discussion we're having now, where during my time in veterinary college, I ended up having loss of life from the two people in my life that were most important to me at that time.
Mm-hmm.
My mother and my grandmother. Those are the two that really raised me and shaped me to be the individual that I am. So during that time, I spent most of my efforts focusing on them and what they were going through instead of focusing on my education and my academics. So I ended up failing a course that took me out of veterinary school and having to come back and repeat that course. Now, as a result of that, I will say that made me much more focused, much stronger in realizing that, again, my grandmother and my mother wanted me to do this. They wanted me to be successful, so that was my focus from there on. So I turned that negative energy, that negative experience into something that was extremely positive. And so from that standpoint, again, trying to take the things that life gives us and turn those things, whether they're good or bad, into positive things that we can learn from. Life is a learning lesson of experiences that we all go through. We all have various journeys, different types of experiences that we encounter, but know that we can make what we want out of those types of experiences as they happen. There are going to be some hard lessons that we all get in life. There are going to be some great lessons that we all get in life. But regardless, those lessons that we get need to be used for something that's positive and beneficial. And that's what I made from the two losses of the people that were most inspirational to me to go into veterinary medicine and do the things that I've done happen. So that would be my best lesson, and recommendation is try to turn those lemons into lemonade, as we'd say, and make those life experiences happen and be the best and the most that you can as the opportunities present themselves.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's so wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing such a personal story with us, Dr. Cannedy. Thank you.
Yes,
Sure.
thank you. It was wonderful. And thank you so much for taking us around the farmyard today.
Glad to.
Absolutely.
All right, so stay tuned for next week, everyone.
Yeah, we'll see you next Friday for our next Field Trip Friday.